Welcome to Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm, where we trade in personal finance advice for entertaining conversations about money and are actively boycotting cool phrases like "for the culture." Welcome to Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. Another beautiful day here in the Washington, D.C. area. My trusty sidekick and friend here, licensed financial advisor, Mr. Malcolm Ethridge. Malcolm, what's going on, man?
All good, man. I'm glad I made it. I was telling you before we started the show, I witnessed for the first time ever a car accident caused by two dogs.
Okay.
So I'm interested to find out who was at fault in that scenario, but unfortunately I had to keep rolling.
Indeed. What's going on with you this week, man? How's everything going?
Everything's good, man. Here's something interesting.
Okay.
I don't even think I kicked this one to you yet because I was like reading it as I was sitting at stoplights.
Okay.
But so I'm rolling, scrolling, and I noticed there's a headline. Michael B. Jordan, who's about the same age as us, but makes a gajillion times more money.
Indeed he does.
Still lives with his folks. So
What?
Michael B. Jordan still lives at home with Michael A. Jordan. That's actually his dad's name, by the way, which I thought it was hilarious.
Right.
But like it was interesting, like the article on, I guess they were trying to make the case that so many millennials still live at home. And they were using that as an example.
Right.
This movie star who, Black Panther, Creed, all the other movies, has made a gajillion dollars and still fighting with his parents over a bathroom. So,
Would you do that?
I did live with my folks for a little bit when I first came back home from school.
Right.
It was an experience.
Okay. Indeed. Well, we want to remind people you are listening and watching Manage Your Damn Money. That is a podcast and also a TV show, so it might sound as such at times. Also, you can listen to past episodes on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify. Simply search Manage Your Damn Money. Today's conversation at hand on this episode of MYDM: becoming a business as a pro athletics yoga instructor. A conversation with Zaineb Hassan. She's a yoga person who we're going to talk to, and she has a business that she's been doing for quite some time. So we're going to talk to her about how she's made it work. But as we do in every episode of Manage Your Damn Money, it is now time for headlines. Trump's budget would end student loan forgiveness programs. Malcolm. February 2018 article by Annie Nova on CNBC.com explains how 45's recent budget proposal would affect student loan programs in particular in the future, and it does not look promising, sir. The proposal would sharply curtail income-based loan repayment plans, scratch the quote-unquote public service loan forgiveness program, and also embolden the government to go after students who don't pay their loans, and cut funding for federal work study in half. These are making me laugh as I read them. Changes to loans will apply to borrowers after July 1st, 2019, so nobody who's currently lending off of the government or has done so in the past. And it was not including those loans provided to borrowers to finish their current education. The budget would eliminate subsidized loans, which is crazy, because subsidized is like while you're in school, it doesn't accrue interest.
Right.
And some 5.7 million students had subsidized loans in 2016 to 2017 academic year. And as I said, subsidized loans don't accrue interest. I had subsidized loans. I guess I still have subsidized loans now.
4 years of compounding is a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Not to mention if you do come out and not find the job that pays you anything worth anything.
Right.
The deferral
right.
that you can do once you come out of school also allows the interest to accrue.
Right.
So it's just like it keeps hitting you and hitting you and hitting you.
Absolutely. The budget plan, which was released a couple weeks ago in February, the budget plan also would narrow the number of income-driven repayment plans, reducing it from 4 options to just 1. Under that option, students' monthly payments would be capped at 12.5% of their income. Students generally pay 10% of their discretionary income under income-based repayment plans currently. However, undergraduate students would have their loans forgiven after 15 years compared to 20 years now. So that's an interesting change. That's actually would be helpful to those who are in student loan debt. And graduate students, meanwhile, would have to have their loans forgiven for 30 years. So it'll take a great deal longer for you to be forgiven for your loans if you went to graduate school.
But that 15 to 20 year period you're talking about that it takes to finally get it behind you, that basically means you're foregoing 15 to 20 years of adulthood,
right?
And you're like Michael B. Jordan, fighting with your folks over, who drank my juice,
right?
Which, at 40, that's not really cool. Like, at 22, 23, 24, your parents are probably like, oh, it's happy having our son, daughter home.
Sure.
30, 35, 40, scratching their head like, when are we getting rid of this person? Like, so you got that to worry about too, all because you decided to go to school and better yourself.
That's hilarious. And the last thing from the story, the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program would be eliminated under this proposed budget, which allows public service jobs like teachers and people who work in nonprofits loan forgiveness after 10 years of on-time payment. So that would be a big deal because there's I have friends who are like on that track to like have their loans forgiven after 10 years of service, and that would, at least in theory, under this budget, be eliminated.
But what jobs qualify you to even get that 10-year?
It's very narrow. Like I haven't looked at the list.
You have to work with like underprivileged youth and be a teacher in disaster areas and stuff like that. Like, there's a very small sliver of the population, like you said, who's going to qualify for that anyway.
You basically have to agree to not make any money for while you're waiting for your forgiveness of loans.
Right. So essentially, like the way the student loan process works in this country, the same way like King Tut and his crew used to take all their gold to the grave, you're taking those student loans to the grave with you. So like, I hope you can buy something with that money in the afterlife, 'cause it's coming.
That's hilarious. So real quick, Malcolm, it's important to understand this budget proposal is just that. It's just a budget proposal. Congress will still have to approve it, which it has not officially done, except through what are called continuing resolutions for a long time. What can we infer from this to understand like what the Trump administration's priorities are when it comes to student loans, just through these couple line items?
Well, you just kind of got at it. Like as our former Vice President Joe Biden used to like to say, show me your budget and you've shown me your priorities.
Right.
So, to say we hear that a good number of you, millions upon millions of you, are in trouble behind this thing called student loan debt.
Right.
Good luck. We're not going to do anything to make it any easier for you.
Right.
But we'll continue to lend you the money.
Okay.
So, you walk into the casino in Vegas and they say, yes, you're already in a hole from the damage you did across the street. But here's another $1 million.
Keep going.
Like, keep rolling the dice.
Keep going.
Who knows?
Indeed.
Let's see.
That's hilarious. So here's an interesting question for you real quick before we go to our first music break. If we see a dramatic change in how flexible, like, for example, loan repayments are, or how, like, you can't get a subsidized loan anymore, will that have an impact on, especially those who can't really afford college as it is? Will that change who actually tries to even go to college?
Yes, and for better and for worse.
Okay.
So we've talked about this in previous shows, but like Silicon Valley thinks they have the solve for all the things that ill society. One of the things that I think that they're getting right is changing the education process, the post-secondary education process, where you don't necessarily need to go off to school for 4 years in some state that you didn't grow up in to learn amongst your peers something that you're not going to actually apply because, there's only so many people that can be art buyers and, can work. So those kind of things. So you go to school for 6 months, 12 months, maybe less to learn a very specific targeted thing, come out of school with a job, and then all of a sudden, like, it's not as bad as it was for the people, their predecessors. And I see that happening now where more and more of those schools are opening up. I can't remember the names of any of them off the top of my head, not, Trump University, but like
not that one.
Some of the other ones. Right. I keep hearing about them, and like they are significant in the sense that the graduate population is growing and growing. So people are actually graduating into a job, which is essentially what you go to school for anyway.
That's the whole point.
Right.
Indeed. Well, that's an excellent point there, Malcolm. We're going to take a quick music break. We want to remind folks you can always listen to past episodes of our show. Just search our name, Manage Your Damn Money, on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Play. You can find us, subscribe, and also leave us a comment or review. If you have a question, yes, that's a big thing for us. We do
read them.
We do read them, and it helps us improve the show. And we also want to remind you, Malcolm has returned with his Malcolm's Money Minute. And if you have a question you want him to answer or respond to, send it to info@manageyourdamnmoney.com. We're going to take a real quick music break, but when we come back, a conversation at hand, becoming a business as a pro athletics yoga instructor. We have a wonderful guest today on today's show. So we're going to take a quick music break. We will be right back. Welcome back to Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. A real quick reminder, if you want to follow us on social media, my handle is at MYDM1. And Malcolm, what's yours?
At Malcolm on Money.
Excellent, excellent. And today's conversation at hand, becoming a business as a pro athletics yoga instructor, a conversation with Zaineb Hassan. As we've slowly progressed as a society, different things exit the obscure and slowly become mainstream. Yoga used to be an activity practiced by bros on beaches and hippies in basements. But since the start of the 21st century, the exercise and mindfulness practice has hit the mainstream. On this episode of MYDM, we will discuss a bit about the yoga business, how it's grown over the years, and invite our guest, Zaineb, to share how she's been building a yoga practice focused on collegiate and professional athletes. Malcolm, so have you ever done yoga, sir?
Once.
Really?
On a work trip, they
Okay.
provided it as like one of the scheduled activities that you could do.
Oh, those
and
bonding work activities?
And it was free. So
Okay.
I said, I'll try it. I'll see what all the hype is about. And it was terrible.
You didn't
and
enjoy it?
by it was terrible, I mean I was terrible. And I'm really bad at being bad at things. And so that's the reason that was the one time that I ever did it. And I said, you know, in my mind, there's something wrong with yoga,
Right.
not my muscles.
Not
so
you.
I just never went back.
The problem's yoga, not
The
you.
problem is the yoga.
Okay.
They can
Indeed.
keep it.
That's hilarious. So a real quick story, how yoga is spreading in the U.S. This was a March 2016 Forbes piece by Alice G. Walton, which explored the growth of yoga in the U.S. Walton's story cites one study which found as many as 37 million people in the U.S. practice yoga, or about 1 out of every 10, which is a lot. In the same survey, it was found that nearly 3/4 of people have been practicing for less than 5 years, which underlines the relative newness of the interest. So people are just now getting into yoga, it would seem. Statista.com as of 2015, the number of people practicing yoga in the U.S. alone stood at around 36.7 million and is projected to reach over 55 million by 2020. It is now 2018. So in about 2 years. And of course, revenue from the yoga industry in the United States amounted to $9.09 billion US dollars in 2015 and is projected to reach over $11 billion US dollars by 2020. Have you seen the price of Lululemon clothing? There's a lot of money to be made in yoga.
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's what's really interesting to me. people in America love to talk about yoga as if it's this new phenomenon that just all of a sudden came up out of the ground out of nowhere.
Right.
People in India and other parts of Asia have been doing yoga for thousands of years.
Right.
So all of a sudden in America, it's like, look at this wonderful thing I just discovered. But then, that is kind of the American way of doing things. I found this idea. I'm going to bring it home, make a gajillion dollars off of it, and then tip my cat to the place where I got it from.
Indeed.
So,
Indeed. Well, have you, I mean, you mentioned having done yoga at a work trip. Have you noticed yoga or the practice of yoga anywhere else in your life?
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I've noticed an increase in the facade of doing yoga. People on the metro with the mat under their arm.
They're going
and
somewhere.
The shoes, and they got on the Lululemon or whatever. But they don't look sweaty. They don't look like they're in a rush. They don't look relieved like they just worked out. I'm not convinced that these people are actually doing what they're self-reporting.
They're just
I
out.
think they're hanging out at the beer garden next to the yoga studio
with the yoga
yoga clothes on, feeling like they're a part of the culture. And then, self-reporting things like 1 in 10 people actively does. I'm not convinced at all. Because I see friends of mine, I won't name any of them because they listen to the podcast, probably watch the show.
Okay.
But people who continuously talk to you about, I got to go get my workout in. I got to go to my yoga class. I got to whatever. I need the receipts. I need these results that we're talking about, so I'm not sold.
Okay, well, you're not so. Hopefully, our guest can shine some light on that.
Please, I hope she tells me I'm wrong.
Indeed. We're gonna take a quick break, but before we do, on the other side of this music break, we have Malcolm's Money Minute. We want to remind you, if you have a question or a thought you want Malcolm to respond to, a question about money, send it to us, info@manageyourdamnmoney.com. And of course, a quick reminder, find us and subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify. On the other side of this break, Malcolm's Money Minute. We will be right back.
If one of your New Year's resolutions was to save more money this year, I have an idea for you. As someone who has been cable-free for going on 2 years now, I'm here to tell you it's not that hard. And the $75 or so that I now save every month is awesome too. If you're currently paying for cable month after month and only actually watching the same 5 to 10 channels every week, consider ditching the traditional cable model for a more cost-effective solution, like the Skinny Bundle, for example, which allows users to choose a package with as few as 25 channels and then add specific a la carte channels for a few dollars a piece. Prospective cord cutters should first consider whether or not they have a contract with their current provider, and if so, how much is the penalty for breaking it? The answer to that question alone could make or break the decision to stay or go. But assuming that you don't have a contract or there's little cost to cancel, there's plenty of options to get your Empire or Game of Thrones fix for the cheap. However, once you start to bring in those additional channels, it becomes less and less cost effective. There's plenty of great options out there for trimming down your cable bill. You just have to do a little bit of research and decide which networks are most important to you, and then find the package that has the most of those in the bundle. But if you're currently on the fence and you're looking for some ways to cut down monthly expenses, I'm a huge fan of cutting the cable bill. If you try it out and you decide that it's too hard and you still need that fix, I promise you can always go back. This is Malcolm Ethridge, licensed financial advisor, and this has been your Money Minute.
Another excellent Malcolm's Money Minute by licensed financial advisor, Mr. Malcolm Ethridge. If you have a question or a comment or concern you want Malcolm to respond to, simply send it to us at info@manageyourdamnmoney.com. But today's conversation at hand on this episode of Manage Your Damn Money, becoming a business as a pro athletics yoga instructor, a conversation with Miss Zaineb Hassan. Pop culture and the gram have made yoga ever more popular in our minds, but we have a guest today who is doing more than twisting her body into a pretzel in their living room for likes and comments. Zaineb Hassan is a certified yoga teacher who has completed over 500 hours in training and trains professional athletes in entire collegiate sports programs. Zaineb, welcome to Manage Your Damn Money. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. So first of all, we have you here because you're a certified trained yoga instructor. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Zaineb Hassan, ZZ for short, and I'm certified in yoga as far as teaching to professional athletes, college athletes, the youth. I have my 200 hours certification from Lifetime Fitness. It's in Columbia, Maryland. Okay. And then Core Power Yoga is where I got my 500 hours, and that's in Georgetown.
Now, what does that mean exactly?
So 200 hours is like the basic of yoga. 500 is you can start your own training facility. You can have your own yoga studio and so forth. It's like the higher level. That's it.
All right. Okay. For sure.
Not really much. But
so Malcolm alluded to like the somewhat history. I don't know if that's what you call what he said of yoga. But why don't you talk a little bit about how yoga helps, or is it supposed to help the body as a physical activity?
Wow, so many different avenues you can go with that. As far as yoga being really beneficial for your body, it's great for injury prevention, which is huge, and that's where I concentrate in as far as specializing with athletes. But also it's great for mental health, mm-hmm. and then mindful compassion, and then meditative, and just being still if you're in like a stressful environment and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. So the reason why you're here is because you have a growing, emerging, budding business. Sure. Where you train athletes and you also work with entire collegiate sports programs.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your business, who your clients are, and what you do when you actually do your business. Like, what does that look like?
So I feel like you're hyping it up a little too much.
That's what we're here for.
Right. We're supposed to gas you up a little bit.
So it's not as cracked up as you think it is.
Okay.
But it's humble beginnings. I'm very, very grateful for where I am and where I started from. As far as teaching my pros, it's great. I have guys in the NBA, in the NFL, MLB, hockey, you name it, any professional sport. I have an athlete in that department, or a few athletes, excuse me. And as far as collegiate, I have University of Maryland's football team, Morgan State's basketball team, Hopkins lacrosse. Some of the top schools in the DMV, in the local area that I teach yoga to. And they appreciate it. Again, the main thing that we focus on is injury prevention, like really enabling your flexibility and aiding towards that, which will help you perform better as an athlete on the court, on the field, and off the court and off the field, you know.
Okay. So what is it, real quick, what does like a session look like with an athlete and then also with like a full program? Because I've seen pictures, and there's kind of a little bit of a difference.
So obviously, smaller group sessions. I don't do privates anymore, but small group sessions, which will contain of 2, maximum 5. As far as my pros, they're a lot more intimate. You'll get the bang out of your buck, to be honest with you. And then as far as my college athlete, it's spread out. And then majority of the times, my pro athletes will do anywhere between 60 to 75 minutes. College is condensed to 30 to 45 minutes at most, just because they have such a hectic schedule comparable to the professional athletes.
Okay. So you mentioned real quick that it is best to have like a private session when you do, or smaller session when you do yoga, but one of the challenges for yoga for the average person like myself is that it's a little bit cost prohibitive to do it, because you're a professional, you charge to be a professional. So it's kind of interesting that you chose to go the world of pro sports, where they tend to have some of the better incomes on the top end of the spectrum and can afford to pay for the better options as far as services from professionals. But is that where you initially started out, or is that eventually where you found yourself having the most success? How did that happen?
So I started out in 2015. I was certified and got all my certifications after school. I'll be honest with you, I took the route of trying to be a yoga teacher at a gym, and I lasted probably 2 months. 2 months only being because I just didn't feel like it was liberating. I didn't feel like I was doing the best at my capability as far as impacting the people around me. And I already had established relationships with so many people in the athletic industry and in the professional athletic industry. So I pitched it out to my mentor. His name is Myron Flowers, who's a great professional a pro trainer, and he trains like a lot of pro athletes in the area. I pitched it to him. I said, hey, listen, I just did this yoga certification, my first one, the 200-hour. I'd love to teach the guys that you train.
Right.
And he, at that time, was still my trainer and still is my trainer to this day. It's been like 8 years. And he said, sure, come on by. Let's see how it goes as far as sessions.
Yeah.
The first person that actually gave me a shot that was one of his pro athletes was Stephon Diggs, who's a local native as well from the area. And then that's really how it progressed. He liked it. Torrey Smith was the next one up, Vernon Davis, and all these are all Maryland grads or Maryland students. And that's where it was pitched to University of Maryland. And honestly, just word of mouth really helped for me. So, yeah.
So finding that niche and then kind of
and just expanding in it. And then it's just the athletic field is huge. It's so broad. And the fact that I was able to narrow it down to the DMV was really great. So, yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Excellent. Another question that I have for you, well, we've kind of talked about this offline. You're coming into a point where you're going to be doing the business full time.
Sure.
But you're also a clinical pharmacist,
Yes.
which is like, what?
Yeah.
So, like, explain
Totally
to me
different.
how these two things happened, how they've occupied the same place, and how they've kind of operated in your, like, personal finance life and supported one,
Sure.
and how you're transitioning.
So I went to Towson for undergrad, just to backtrack, and then I went to University of Maryland for grad school, and that was at University of Maryland downtown in Baltimore for pharmacy school. Finished that, got my PharmD, and that's in the process of me finishing up is when I got my certification for yoga. And really why I was adamant about doing this certification is I've been in school for almost 10 years, and in such a stressful academic environment, I said, hey, if this helped me, I'm pretty sure it can help somebody else who's in that type of environment that's really stressful, that's really focused on you competing, because that's really what I was doing at the end of the day, and that's what a lot of my athletes were doing as well. So in my mind, I said, okay, listen, you know what, you have an idea, get your certification, teach for a little bit, and then just try to venture out to do the athletes, because it's quote unquote the same thing. Right. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, so I finished pharmacy school. After that, I was able to fund my way to the yoga certification, which is not cheap.
Right.
And I have been practicing for 2 years in DC at MedStar in Georgetown, and honestly, that was my bread and butter for the longest time. Right. I figured out financially I could not suffice living with my yoga income for my first 2 years.
Living with my
I'm trying to be as like delicate as possible.
Right.
But have no fear. You know, if you want to teach yoga, and I highly recommend it for anyone who's really interested, it'll pay off eventually. You know, the first 2 years in any business, you know, you're starting off, it's going to be rough, but eventually you'll start making making the right money. Having the right contracts with these universities really help, and you know, the pros are not bad.
Talk about when you knew it was time to like switch from clinical pharmacist during the day, yoga instructor at night, and now you're going to
actually
do some
different
flipping.
Yoga instructor during the day and pharmacy at night.
Oh, you did the night shift.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was 12 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Ooh.
Wow.
And then I would take like a break and just nap for 2 hours, and I'd start teaching from 2 p.m. to 8, and then I'd go home, and I did that for 2 years straight, and then I would start. It was 45 hours a week, and then cut back down to 40, and I'm now about to let the pharmacy go.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm in a position where, thank God, I can take care of myself financially.
You spend a lot of time like laying down on a mat. I don't know how you didn't just fall asleep during the session, like, you know, like, well, okay, my version of yoga had a lot of laying down on a mat.
Okay.
So I actually probably did fall asleep in the class that I took, because it was like 5:30 in the morning, and like, you know, I didn't get all my sleep yet. So I don't know how you didn't just like completely lose it. But it's interesting that you say that the whole thing kind of flip-flopped, and it sounds like you now have a plan for kind of what you're going to be moving to, doing this all of the time. Because one of the recurring themes on our show is always finding out your passion, turning that passion into a side hustle, and then eventually evolving that side hustle into a full-blown career. And so it sounds like it's only taken you about 2 years to kind of figure out how to make that transition. But that pathway probably has kind of given you some ideas of like what the next steps look like. Have you kind of gotten there with it yet too?
As far as my goals for the future?
Right, how it'll expand and that sort of thing.
So I definitely want to build a team. That's my next goal, is to find some people to work under me, or work together, with me, and, you know, build a family team in reference to that, and have ZZ Yoga expand, especially in the DMV areas, because there's a lot of talk about me possibly traveling some to teach yoga and so forth to different other clientele. So that's definitely in the works. And if there are any yoga teachers who are highly interested, please contact me. Yeah. So so that's number one. Yeah, you're right. That was my side hustle. That was my passion for the longest. I come from a Middle Eastern African background where this could not have played out at all if I was back home. So the fact that I had to, and again, I'll be completely honest, my parents were, actually my entire family was totally against it. So
I'm sure they were thrilled that you were throwing away a career in pharmacy.
Yeah, for sure. So the fact that I had no financial help initially to try to get my yoga certifications, I had to wait till after I was done with school to provide myself and able to do that. It shows, like it shows that that's my passion. I really wanted it. I worked my butt off to get it. Second thing, it became my hustle, my part-time, and now I'm taking it full force on, and I couldn't have done it any other way. I'll just say this much though, having that support system, having a team that really stands by you and really believes in what you do, and also helps you along the way, not just, you know, motivates you just as a standby person, but just really is in on everything, that really helps.
Right. What's been 2 major lessons you've learned in running like kind of a yoga practice? You're somewhat of a consultant.
Sure.
You have contracts with universities, and you also deal with athletes on group basis. So what's been one thing you've learned about the business side of managing this and making money from this?
Oh, man.
2 things.
As easy as it comes is as easy as it goes. I'm used to having a salary, like a monthly salary, you know, or like an annual salary that's consistent. This is very flexible, and it fluctuates like all the time. So one month you could make a great amount, and the next month you could barely make half of that. And that's, I guess that's what it comes with entrepreneurship and, you know, owning your own business in the beginning phases. Again, it's humble beginnings. have a great savings. I'll just say that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how you plan to deal with what's ahead?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
But that is key, though.
Yeah, that is.
I want to
have
just,
to.
because you kind of blew by it really fast, I want to just reiterate that whole thing about
for sure
having savings put aside before you decide to jump out there into
When,
the deep end. Before you decide to jump out there into the deep end. Because once you're there and the lights come on, it's like it's too late to be then saying, well, let me try to scratch and claw. So
Absolutely. And then in terms of dealing with who you would like to become clients in the future, or what a client roster of sorts would look like in the future, what do you see that? You talked about building the team and things like that. What's kind of the ultimate version of Zaina's practice, ZZ Yoga?
To be honest with you, I work with a lot of youth in the area, so I work with a lot of communities. So if we're referring to just like volunteer work, I would love to have a yoga studio, honestly, and dedicate it to a lot of like not so privileged children or low-income children who have, any type of disability or any type of, help me out.
So you want to find a way to give back while you also
for sure. That's like my number one goal, because I just feel like it's such a way where you can touch people's hearts and inspire people around you, and really just by focusing on a person and just telling them that you care. So kids need that for sure. But as far as pro athletes and college athletes and building a team, I'd love to have like a yoga center of mine, and not just one, but just a few in the area, to focus on that specifically. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. That sounds good.
Well, I need you to call me if and when you add Serena Williams to your roster of clients, because I've been trying to figure out a way to make her my best friend for years, and I'm still drawing a blank. So if you become that connection to her, just remember that I told you I need that intro to Serena, because we belong being best friends.
I got you. So just FYI, the yoga that I teach, you're only on your mat maybe like a minute. It's actually dynamic and static stretching with yoga poses.
Dynamic
so don't think like
dangerous.
splits and handstands. Don't think any of that. I don't teach any of that. Not to athletes.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't need that.
I don't think Malcolm's going to do any of that.
I don't think Malcolm's going to do any of that either.
Well, we want to remind people you're listening and watching Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. We've been talking to Miss Zaineb Hassan. She is the practice founder, CEO of ZZ Yoga. Real quick question before we close.
Sure.
How does the business in particular fit into the kind of the financial and also the kind of life that you see yourself building?
Oh, wow. Well, I'll be honest with you. It's a great way to have income, but you have to just think smart. You have to invest in things that will, in the outcome, make you feel like you're better. So the fitness industry, again, it fluctuates. One day you can make, or 1 month you can make X, Y, Z, the next day you can't. So as long as you have that good savings, that good background, a good head on your shoulders, you'll be fine for the future.
Excellent. If people want to connect with you or learn more about what you do, where can they find you?
I just launched my website, so it's zzyoga.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter and connect with me through there as well. But Instagram is great, ZIZI_yoga, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm pretty sure if you put ZZ Yoga on a Google search, you'll find me.
Excellent. Thank you, Zainab, for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Here on our new set here at Montgomery Community Media. Of course, for our social media handles, Malcolm, what's yours?
At Malcolm on Money.
And mine is at MYDM1. We want to remind you can always catch past episodes of Manage Your Damn Money on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and now Spotify. Check us out. Leave us a review. That helps us go up in the ratings. And, of course, thanks to our folks here at Montgomery Community Media, our crew. Thanks for another great show. And remember, you can catch us at our website, manageyourdamnmoney.com, or on Facebook, facebook.com/manageyourdamnmoney. And, of course, our social media handles, as we mentioned. Until next time, be good with your money.
Peace.
Peace.